Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something really personal and often misunderstood: what it's actually like to go through an episode of borderline personality disorder, or BPD. We're going to map out this internal storm together with some empathy and hopefully a lot of clarity.
So let's just start with this question. I want you to really think about a time when your emotions felt too big, just too intense to handle. That raw feeling of being completely overwhelmed, that's really our jumping off point for trying to understand what a BPD episode can feel like. So what exactly is a BPD episode? It's way more than just a bad mood. It's a period of really profound distress that can feel like you're literally caught in an emotional hurricane. Okay, so here's the textbook definition, but let's break it down. A BPD episode is when everything, your emotions, your thoughts, even your behaviors, gets turned up to 11. The big thing to remember here is that the emotional reaction just feels huge, totally overwhelming, and often it feels completely out of proportion to whatever actually set it off. So one of the central features here is something called splitting. It's this defense mechanism where the world just gets split into black and white. 1 minute a person is perfect, an angel, can do no wrong. The next, maybe after one tiny little thing, they're the absolute worst, a total demon who has betrayed you. And it's this incredibly fast flip-flop that helps explain why relationships can feel so unstable and intense.
And splitting? That's just one piece of a much bigger, more chaotic puzzle. During an episode, a person is juggling, just look at this list: rapid mood swings, this terrifying fear of being abandoned, a deep, gnawing feeling of emptiness, and sometimes even feeling totally disconnected from your own body or reality. That's called dissociation. It's literally a storm hitting from every single direction.
All right, so every storm has to start somewhere, right? With a spark. So let's talk about that spark, the triggering event, where this whole journey begins. Okay, so this is basically our roadmap for the rest of our chat. It shows the 5 stages of an episode. We're going to walk through each of these, step by step, starting with that trigger and going all the way to the aftermath.
So, stage 1, the trigger. And here's the thing: it doesn't have to be some huge dramatic event. It could be something external, something that might seem really small to you or me, like a text that's taking too long to come through. Or it could be totally internal, a traumatic memory that just pops up out of nowhere.
And here are some really common examples. Just look at this list. Notice a pattern? So many of them are about our relationships with other people, feeling rejected, plans getting canceled, arguments. And that's because these things can tap right into that deep core fear of abandonment we talked about. And that can be enough to set everything in motion. Okay, so the trigger's been pulled. Now we're diving right into the heart of the storm. This is where things really ramp up, and that internal experience becomes, well, incredibly turbulent.
All right, stage 2, emotional escalation. That little spark of hurt, it just explodes into this out-of-control wildfire. We're talking anger, despair, anxiety, all of it. And the speed, it is just staggering. We're talking about going from 0 to 100 in a matter of minutes. And that intense escalation, it flows right into stage 3, desperation. This is where that primal fear of being left alone just takes over the driver's seat. It can lead to these really frantic efforts to get some reassurance, to feel connected. Maybe it's a flood of texts or calling over and over, just looking for any sign that says, I'm not going to leave you.
And all of that builds up to this, the climax. Stage 4, the crisis point. This is the absolute peak of the storm. The pain inside is just so intense, so unbearable, that it feels literally impossible to cope. And at this point, you might see impulsive or risky behaviors, not because someone wants to cause trouble, but as a desperate attempt to make that internal pressure stop.
And we really need to pause here because this is incredibly serious. That unbearable pain, it's not an exaggeration. This is why a staggering 80% of people with BPD have suicidal thoughts during these crisis points. The pain is real. It's overwhelming, and it is absolutely life-threatening.
And that's exactly why it is so crucial to not try and ride this storm out alone. If you or anyone you know is in that crisis state, please reach out for help. You can call or text 988. It's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's available 24/7, it's free, it's confidential, and they can provide immediate support.
Okay, so after that intense peak, the storm starts to pass. The winds calm down, and that brings us to our last stage, the aftermath. This is a time of quiet, but it also comes with a cost.
This quote right here, I think it says it all perfectly. After the episode, there's often this feeling of being completely drained, just empty. And that's usually mixed with this heavy sense of guilt or shame for things that were said or done during the crisis. What you get is this incredible emotional whiplash. I mean, just think about the contrast here. You go from the peak of the crisis, that intense anger, feeling totally out of control, the impulsive actions, and then, bam, you crash into the aftermath, which is just this heavy, heavy weight of exhaustion, shame, and regret. It's a really jarring, painful shift. But, and this is so important, the aftermath isn't just about the crash. This quiet period, as painful as it might be, is actually a really critical window. It's a chance to breathe, it's a moment for reflection, for learning, and for starting the real work of healing. So, okay, how does that healing actually happen? Where do you even start? In this last section, we're going to look at the pathways to support, the tools and strategies that can really help people learn to navigate these storms and find a path forward. Okay, so the gold standard treatment, the one with the most evidence, is called dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. And the reason it's so effective is that it's not just about talking. It's a skills-based therapy. It literally gives you a toolbox full of practical skills for things like managing your emotions, getting through a crisis without making it worse, and having more effective relationships. And those skills from DBT, you can weave them into your everyday life with these kinds of coping strategies. Things like, mindfulness and grounding techniques to pull you back to the present moment. Creating a safety plan before a crisis hits. Building a solid support system. Even just journaling to spot your own patterns. All of these are proactive steps that can really empower someone to feel more in control. And that brings us to one last question to leave you with. Now that we've walked through this whole journey, from that first spark to the quiet aftermath, how could understanding this change things? How can really grasping what this internal storm feels like change the way we react to intense emotional distress? Not just when we see it in other people, but maybe in ourselves too. It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this